Now we're going to circle back and we're going to spend a little bit more time in those verses 26 and 27. We're going to take a little bit more time to look at this sin that's being pointed out. And as we do, let's keep in mind that Paul not only spoke several different languages, he was also well-traveled and well-educated. His lived experience allowed him to interact with and understand different peoples in different cultures. He understood different religions, and he was acquainted with their traditions. It was important for Paul to be aware of these differences, and it's important for us to be mindful of them as well. It's important that we remember that people of different cultures, people in different time periods and different eras, people in different families, different cities, different countries, different groups, share different traditions, different customs, different values, different norms. People of differing faith traditions have different religious rituals. These differing religious rituals and these differing customs and these differing norms are actually what Paul is pointing out in these clobber passages. He is both comparing and contrasting them, and yes, I would say he's judging them. He's comparing and contrasting two different faith traditions, and he's using two different languages to do it. So he's comparing and contrasting the religious practices of the Jewish folk with those who worship the Greek goddesses. I should probably say the Greek gods and goddesses. He's comparing and contrasting the group of people, the Hebrew nation who followed the one true God, with those who follow many gods. And believe it or not, the problem that he is pointing out in verses 26 and 27 is not the sex act. That's our culture. That's our shared position. That's our context to be worried about someone else's sexual orientation. That wasn't what was happening back then. In that time, in that place, in that era, when Paul was traveling and writing letters, the problem had to do with passions. The problem was thought to be people who get carried away with themselves. People who are filled with and showing and following too many emotions. Now that might be something for us to reflect on. The problem that Paul was speaking of and pointing to, the problem was they weren't using self-control. And Paul uses two different languages to point this out. He's speaking the language of the Jewish faith leaders and the language of the Stoic philosophers who were mostly Greek in origin. Both of these groups believed that too much emotion just wasn't natural. Too much passion was unnatural. In their way of thinking, that's not how God created normal folk. Unbridled passions were not conventional. To be lustful, that wasn't natural or normal. Again, what that means is the problem in that era, in that place, wasn't thought to be sexual attraction. It was instead unbridled, lustful, erotic passion.